On episode 1149, Brad Feld describes how he reconciles the ups and downs of being an early-stage investor.
I don't know that I've reconciled this as a profession. I probably refer people to a couple of things. One is, you mentioned him earlier, Jerry Colonna, and I've had Jerry on the show a few times.
Sure.
Jerry is one of my closest friends. We now live a mile from each other, just on the edge of Boulder. And, just the amount that I've learned from him, and not just in terms of listening to him, but reflecting back and forth between the two of us, has been incredibly powerful. One of the key points for me, and it happened probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and it tracks back almost 7 years ago now. In 2013, I had a very deep depressive episode again for about 6 months. And this one was really triggered physiologically. I ran a 50-mile race in 2012, which was too much run. I'm a big runner, but that was too much training and too much running in the context of all the traveling I was doing. And I won't sing the country music song of all the things that happened for the next 6 or 9 months. In general, my life
They do call it, Brad, by the way, an ultra marathon for a reason.
Yeah, it was
it's like 2 marathons. It's not 3 marathons, but it's 2.
No, I love running marathons, but a 50 miler was too much. But I had a near death experience. My dog died. I ended up with a kidney stone. I had surgery. Like a bunch of shit happened. And along this period of time, a couple of people in the entrepreneurial world committed suicide. And there was this, if you sort of track back and look around in 2013, there was sort of a flurry of articles suddenly about mental health and entrepreneurship. And Jerry and I were in a bunch of them because I was very open about my depressive episode. And as I was open about it, many entrepreneurs reached out to me. Less investors, but many entrepreneurs, lots of ones whose names you'd recognize. And in a lot of cases, I was the first person that they'd reached out to, or they'd say, you're the first person other than my therapist or other than my wife or my husband, or I haven't talked to anybody about it. I'm afraid to talk to anyone about it. And through these conversations, what I realized was a couple of things. One was the stigma associated with mental health was really pernicious and was a real problem in our industry. And for anyone that wants a quick hit sort of experience with this, not in our industry, but in a powerful way, should watch the HBO documentary, The Weight of Gold, which a guy named Brett Rapkin did. I got connected to it by Jeremy Bloom, who's CEO of Integrate, which we're investors in. Jeremy was an Olympic skier. Michael Phelps is the narrator. And it talks about the stigma of mental health in professional sports. But the parallels with entrepreneurship are profound. And so I started thinking about this a lot going back 6 or 7 years ago, and had as my own sort of one of my own internal things to help eliminate the stigma associated with mental health. But that led to another thing, and that's the answer to your question, which is Jerry had been a Buddhist for many years. And I was always interested in Buddhism intellectually, not as a religion. And, there's interesting debate about whether Buddhism is actually a religion or not, but not really as a spiritual practice, more as a philosophy. And so about 3 years ago, I started to really dig deeper into that and learn and understand it. And one of the powerful things that comes out of that philosophy is sort of the essence of suffering and the notion of attachments. And I had been talking about the idea of non-attachment for a number of years. The therapist that I go to is he's a professionally trained, but also a Buddhist. And I didn't really realize that, by using that phrase non-attachment, I was linking to a very powerful construct. And the construct is this, and it goes back to your question, like when you have failure, you want less of it. Right? You want to get away from the failure. You want to have success. Right. When you have success, though, you want then to have more of it. The success only lasts for a little while, and then you want more of it. You become attached. And the negative reaction that many of us have, especially in the Western world, is detachment. I don't give a shit, or I'm not going to let that bother me, or you sort of push away from it. And the pushing away from it is the similar behavior to the attachment. And the real trick is this non-attachment. It's not whatever is going to happen, but you accept that it's going to happen. And instead of seeking more good or pushing away from the bad, you focus on trying to do whatever you want to do and can do sort of in the moment and in the context of all of it. Now, I'm not trying to be a Buddhist philosopher here. I'm sure I'm butchering the essence of
Buddhist
it for anybody
capitalist.
that's listening. Yeah, Buddhist capitalist. For anybody who's listening, I'm sure I'm butchering the essence of it. But sort of in that, for me, over the last 6 or 7 years, a lot of what I have tried to learn and understand and adopt and become of is this notion of non-attachment. Do I enjoy things that are successful? Of course. Do I dislike things that are not successful? Of course.
Right.
But I try not to be attached to those experiences, but rather exist in this experience I'm having. And I'll just end with having just clicked over to 55, right?
Right.
At 55, you still might be able to make the argument that you're not quite at midlife yet, that you might live to be 101. When you're
Counting
55,
down. Yeah, you're counting.
yeah, when you're 55, it's pretty hard to say you're not solidly at midlife.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're like, holy shit. This is a finite phenomena. And, especially in the year of COVID, I mean, I've had a few friends die. Yeah. There's plenty of health issues in and around my direct world. Several people who are really close to me who are in their 80s. One died this year. One is very ill. On and on, right? So you start to have this recognition of, this thing's pretty finite. And all of a sudden, this notion of striving, which again comes back to this Buddhist essence, like striving for what? Striving for more. And Jerry has this magnificent book. I'm sure I think the podcast you did with him around the book was powerful. I don't know if you talked about this in the book, but he has a section where we're sitting outside one day just talking, and a couple of years ago while he was working on the book. And I said to him, I think I'm just fucking done striving.
Yeah.
I'm just done. Yes, sure. I'm sure some more things will happen that are good. I'm sure there'll be more things that happen that fail, but whatever.
On episode 1150, Pitch CEO Christian Reber describes his focus on design and working with Meta Labs' Andrew Wilkinson.
It's a great question. I honestly have no idea why design became such an important thing in my career, but I always felt like I'm a design-driven founder, and we have designed everything in-house, both at Wunderlist and at Pitch. That said, we've recently actually partnered with a great firm called MetaLab from Vancouver to help us a little bit. But generally, I think the Germans are just really good at crafting premium products.
Oh, so you heard MetaLab? They're the ones who did Slack, right? Famously.
Exactly. That was one of their most famous projects they've worked on.
They did Uber as well. Maybe it was Uber Eats, I think they did.
Uber, Coinbase, I think. Yeah. It's a great firm. Andrew and I, the founder, became friends during Wunderlist days, actually. He had a competitor product. Forgot what is Flow, I think it was called. Getflow.com. Pretty cool task management app. And
what is it? Let me just ask you, what does it cost? Ballpark, not specifically for that company, Andrew's company, but for a company of that design level, what do they charge to design an app like a SaaS app? Is that like $500,000, $250,000? What do you think that costs for a year?
Yeah, I think $250,000 is nearly where you land on. It really depends on the complexity and like what kind of product you want to build. Is it multi-platform, just a mobile app? Is it like 10 screens you need or 100 screens you need? I think we didn't even outsource our design. Like we had a pretty good design team, but what I kind of tried to accomplish there was to challenge our own product design with one of the best product design firms out there to increase the quality. Oh, that's
interesting. So like a hybrid system. So
exactly.
You would say to your team, make your best effort. Then you go to Andrew Wilkinson, who seems to be a really brilliant guy, and say, hey, punch this up, tell us how to make it better, and tell us why you did that, and then you bring your team back, and instead of them feeling admonished, they feel like they just got coached or somebody just gave them notes, right?
Yeah, I think honestly, like I'm such an instinct driven person that I rarely like research the kind of products that I want to build. For me, the opportunity pitch was crystal clear, like build the next generation web-based presentation platform that works a little bit like Figma and all these modern design tools, but purely made for presentation creators. And I thought like, okay, now we raise some venture funding and it might be a good idea to validate your your ideas. And MetaLab has really built a very good process around that. And they interviewed hundreds of presentation creators, Google Slides users, PowerPoint users, Keynote users, and tried to figure out, like, are they actually looking for a better solution or not? And if so, which features are they missing? And that was a really good learning process for me. And it's a great company to partner with.
On episode 1151, Alex Wilhelm and Beth Kindig discuss Zoom's immense pricing power.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Netflix question, which was like, I remember when it was like $5 and then it was $10 and now it's 15. And I think when you have this kind of traction and this level of product market fit, that when the time is right, I don't think the time is right now, but I think that they could increase their prices. What I really like what Zoom's doing too is Pinterest is starting to integrate with Zoom for creative hobbyist demonstration. So, you know, if you're on Pinterest and you're a fashion designer or something, you would integrate, they're integrated with Zoom and they're going to hold fashion classes or fashion presentations. So I think Zoom actually has that developer flywheel where, like, what is everyone else going to do with Zoom and their apps, you know, and that's something that I'm really keen on.
The API.
Yeah, through the API, yeah.
All right. So if they did double it, let's just say they went crazy and they decide to double it in, January 1st, they double the price, in 3 weeks, they double the price. What percentage of users do you think they lose?
I think they'd keep the majority of them. I don't think people are going to leave Zoom.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, I took the long way, but that's what yeah.
What do you think, Alex?
15%.
15%. Yeah, I would agree.
Think about it this way. Like, we all use some streaming music service. I'm a Spotify user and have been for a million years. They charge me something stupid, like $10 a month.
You don't know, do you?
Well, no.
See, I mean, this is how cheap these services are. When you don't even remember, I have the family plan for Spotify, which is I think $15 a month. And I just gave it to my brothers, my mom, and I think 2 of them used it. But I'm like, this is such a ridiculous deal. I used to buy 20 CDs a year for $20 each. And this is $180. My whole family gets all music all the time.
Yeah. So if they raised that, if they said, now, Alex, it's now $40 a month, I would be like, well, that sucks. All right. I wouldn't even blink twice about it. That to me is a non-negotiable service. I will pay anything Spotify asks of me. And I wonder how close Zoom is getting to that point, because Netflix has become like electricity in a house. You have to have it. Back to Beth's point. So like, I wonder if Zoom has reached that threshold, and if so, how much defense that'll give them. But I think it's going to be a lot. I think there's a lot of pricing power.
Crazy in that product. How long have you been on Amazon Prime, Alex?
Oh, I mean, I can't recall not being on it. So, I mean, ages.
Year one. Do you remember what you paid year one?
I don't know what I'm paying now.
Introductory price.
How much does it cost?
You don't know what you paid originally, and you don't know what you pay now. Beth, how long have you been on Amazon Prime? I love this.
I think about 4 years. I want to say it's $99 a year.
Do you remember your first price you paid?
I feel like it was $99 a year. Yeah.
Okay. The introductory price was $50 to $60, and it's $150 a year now.
Okay.
And the reason none of us actually even know what we pay for it is because it is such tremendous value that who would ever not have 2-day delivery? They've boiled the frog, right? And I wonder about DoorDash to the discussion we're having here is, does DoorDash have that same thing where I kind of feel like the pricing on DoorDash and even Uber Eats and some of these things, I do hear people who are affluent saying, well, it's kind of expensive. Maybe I should go pick it up.
I mean, that was us last night. We were running late for dinner and I didn't want to cook, and I had book club with my dad, and Liza had a thing. And I was like, I'm just gonna order Indian food. And it was like, it was supposed to be like $50 or $60 for us both to eat Indian food in our house. And I was like, okay, but like, maybe we don't need that. It just felt to me like all of a sudden it was like 20% more money than I wanted to spend on dinner because I was going to eat it at home on the couch in front of the TV where I always am.
What about you, Beth? Have you had that? Like, I mean, listen, we have people on the call right now who are not price sensitive for the extra $20 it costs to have dinner brought to the house, but they've actually kind of charged what the real cost is, right? And the real cost is not de minimis. Do you even think about the cost now, Beth?
I'm kind of in the same boat where even like my OTT connected TV, like I have so many apps that I'm paying for. I think I'm paying more than I used to for cable. Amazon Prime, Netflix. But when it comes to DoorDash, for some reason, I always look at that price and I'm like, that doesn't feel right. We actually pick up a lot. So because of that, it's like, I don't mind tipping the driver and I want the driver to be paid well, but it feels like there's extra junk fees in there that I'd rather not pay $20 for delivery. So yeah, I'm kind of in that camp.
I am not price sensitive, but I do look at those numbers sometimes and I'm like, and you know what I realized? I had somebody on the podcast who Chow Now, and they provide software, enterprise software to restaurants. And they charge like $500 a month or something. So if you're a restaurant and you want to basically have the software of Uber Eats or DoorDash, you can have that, but you have to bring your own delivery service, right? And what I realized when I started doing the back of the envelope math, because I grew up in the restaurant business, do you know what delivery people were getting paid prior to DoorDash and Uber Eats and Grubhub? They were getting paid like $20 a shift for a 12-hour shift off the books. They were typically illegal immigrants who were being taken advantage of. They would be given $10 or $20 in cash, and then they would get $1 or $2 a delivery, and they would get whatever tips they had. So they would probably net out to $5 to $10 an hour off the books, or if it was a slow night, they might only go home with $25. That's kind of how the industry worked. So you had this underground economy that was subsidizing food delivery. And now you have these companies have to do it by the books. And even doing it by the books with gig workers, it's really expensive to do.
Shows up. I mean, whenever you finish clicking the food items and then the actual bill comes up in like Uber Eats, for example, which is what I use, there's like more lines than I expect. And I feel vaguely annoyed by that, especially because I know there's markup built into the food prices because I'm ordering from restaurants I used to go to. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm paying every direction here. And the restaurant isn't doing that well. And the delivery driver isn't really making mint. I feel like instead I'm kind of just helping the company that's doing the least work. They're not driving the car. They're not making the food. Why is DoorDash worth $60 billion when all the restaurants are closing? And to be clear, the company has arguments about why this is not as bad as I'm making it out to be. But like that song plays in my head consistently when I execute these transactions.
The best of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Odoo is a fully customizable and fully integrated suite of software that lets you build and scale your stack as you build and scale your business. Your first app is free forever, and right now, Odoo is offering $1,000 off your first implementation pack at odoo.com/twist. That's odoo.com/twist. Masterworks, the first company allowing investors exposure into the blue chip artwork asset class. Twist listeners can skip the 25,000 person waitlist by going to masterworks.io and using promo code TWIST. Vanta. Compliance and security shouldn't be a deal breaker for startups to win new business. Vanta makes it easy for companies to get a SOC 2 report fast. Twist listeners can get $1,000 off for a limited time at vanta.com/twist. Our Crowd helps you invest early in pre-IPO companies alongside professional VCs. If you're interested in investing, you can join Our Crowd for free at OurCrowd.com/twist. Pipe. SaaS companies, this is for you. Pipe helps you unlock your recurring revenue as upfront capital. No debt, no loans, no dilution. Sign up in minutes and start trading on Pipe free for 12 months at pipe.com/twist. LinkedIn Jobs. A business is only as strong as its people, and every hire matters. Get $50 off your first job post at linkedin.com/twist. ChartHop. Growing your company is hard. Planning for it doesn't have to be. Visualize your company's future in seconds with ChartHop. Get $600 in credits, which will cover your first 5 employees, by signing up at charthop.com/twist today. And Gusto. Running a startup is hard work, but thankfully Gusto makes payroll easy. They also offer flexible benefits, onboarding, and so much more. Twist listeners get 3 months free at gusto.com/twist.